One of the things that I learned from doing the CPET is that I have an ischemic threshold, meaning if my heart rate gets above a certain point for longer than 90 seconds or so, it actually does damage to my heart. So there's a lot of pieces to saying, really knowing our bodies and what works for us and how to train to improve our own cardiovascular health. Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm Jenn Trepeck, your host and health coach, here with you every week for wellness without the weirdness, as we say. Joining me today is Christine. Christine is a dear friend, colleague, acupuncturist. Christine, welcome back.
Thanks, Jen. Great to be
She made
here.
her fingers into a heart, which you guys can't see because this is an audio-only platform. But, you know, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'll remind everybody, you've been on the show before, both as a featured guest, our first ever interview, actually, about acupuncture. But more recently, you were at Salad with a Side of Fries live earlier this year.
That's right. Wonderful event. Great to meet all the audience members and friends and family. I think I was sitting next to your mother, possibly.
Oh, love that. Also a frequent guest of the show, I should say. So one of the questions that somebody asked about at the event was, if you're generally well, you don't necessarily have any quote unquote health problems. How do you know where to focus? Like, what do we do? And I think today is a better answer to that question than I had time to give at the event. So Jill and Dawn, shout out to you because I think this pertains to the questions that you guys asked. So we're going to talk about today the 8 domains of health. And I think of these as sort of like a framework for thinking about where you are in, I guess call it a span of health. And then from there, where we want to prioritize. So this is especially relevant, I think, too, as we're in this time of year where it's just tons of holidays. And of course, there's commitments that we then make for the new year. And so I think this can guide not just what we prioritize now through the end of the year, but also where we decide to commit our energy in 2025. Sound good?
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, before we get into it, we have to tell our members what they're getting this week. So members, I'm sending you a recipe that is really designed to use your Thanksgiving leftovers if you have them. So it's for kale and sweet potato hash. It's frankly delicious any time of year and a great way to make use of whatever leftovers you have without it tasting the same as Thanksgiving. And by the way, I should say too, like you can make this with whatever ingredients you have. It doesn't have to be with Thanksgiving leftovers. But I love this one. I think this fits any time of year, especially now. So if you want this recipe, be sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries for just $10 a month. You get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. It's a total deal. I say it all the time. It's a steal because when you take advantage of the full offerings, you save far more than that $10 cost. It's seriously a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, being a member supports this podcast and this community so we can continue to bring you new episodes every single week. So remember, you're going to go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or easier than that is just click the link in the episode notes. Once you're there, you click the little I agree button and then support now. Enter your email and payment info, click subscribe, and you're all set. You'll get this week's recipe for the kale and sweet potato hash that you can make with your Thanksgiving leftovers. Okay, so I started to say this before of like thinking of health as a spectrum, right? So in the work that Christine and I do, especially with other health professionals, like we encourage people to talk about this or think about it as like -10 to +10, right? That we can be anywhere along that spectrum. And I suppose like +10 would be like optimal health. We're in maybe that, if we're at like the +5 to 10 range, that's where your biohacks might be more helpful, right? If you're in that -10 to 0, right? We want to sort of repair and get to a place where, we're sort of, I don't know, maybe 0 can be downplayed, but like being at 0 can be a really tremendous place to be.
Yeah. That's like, they call it homeostasis in the scientific world,
Right.
where everything is balanced. And also, the minus can be either disease states or lifestyle things, that make it that, you kind of wake up in the morning, you don't feel so great, or you go to do something and you're exhausted, So when you're in that minus realm, life just gets a little harder. When you're in the plus realm, all of a sudden you have a little more energy, you're thinking a little clearer, you're getting things done. So it has repercussions in your life. It's not just a number on a blood test.
Absolutely. And by that point, as you progress from -10 to 0, you'll probably still start to experience some of the things that, Christine, you were just saying somebody experiences in the positive side, because it's all relative. It's based on wherever you are, and progress is progress. So as we go through these 8 domains, maybe consider where you would put yourself in that domain on the scale of -10 to +10, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
Yeah.
domain 1 is digestion. Now, most of the time, people think of digestion as literally like processing food. Christine, you and I even did this episode, Where Does the Food Go? So everybody can go back to that one. That was you and I together. So we often think of digestion as literally the processing of food, but I think it goes beyond just food processing and nutrient absorption, right? Like we want to think about total gut health. We want to think about how often you eliminate, right? We have a couple episodes on poop, called them the down and dirty. So you can go back and find those too. We'll put links in the episode notes for those. You like my creative titles?
Yes.
So think about your elimination. Think about how often you're experiencing gas and bloating or indigestion of any kind. What else would you say, Christine, about digestion?
Things, belching, hiccups, all those things. You also might, just feel like, they call it gastritis, but it could be like this fiery feeling, like after you eat or when you lie down, that there's this burning sensation. So that's a little higher up. I like to think of the digestion as like starting at the mouth and going all the way down through the large intestine. So you're going to have different symptoms depending on where the disagreement is with your lifestyle, depending on what you eat. Some of us, eat a large meal late at night. And so then that might be in your stomach where you're just feeling like, this heavy, heavy feeling. But other people, they may not be aware of food sensitivities, and that would show up more in the intestines, either the small intestine or the large intestine. So we want to take care of the entire digestive tract.
Exactly, which is why, too, maybe I'm jumping the gun to number 2, which we'll get there in a second, but it's part of why I'm not a big fan of detoxes that focus on just one organ, right? Because we really want to support the entire GI tract, As Christine and I have a mentor who says the road to health is paved with good intestines. Right. So, and that's because, Christine was talking about, where you might be feeling discomfort. But the other piece of that is, your GI tract is your immune system. Your GI tract is your nutrient absorption. Your GI tract is it's your gut brain connection, right? Like there's so much that happens in the gut of the body, right? That like, it's why digestion, the complete system of digestion, is really, a key fundamental domain of health. Mm. So I would say, consider where you are -10 to +10. Mm. I don't know. I think for me, I'm usually pretty good, but I do notice when I'm in that spot. And I can, because I'm sort of tuned in, I can usually pinpoint what's happening. But, I would encourage everybody, if you're one of those people who poops once a day and you think you're regular, right? Or if you are one of those people who poops every couple days, let's focus on digestion. That frequency of elimination would probably put you in the minus numbers, just to throw that out there, right? Proper elimination is an elimination for every time we eat, right? So think of babies.
I think of pets.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
Got to walk the dog again.
All right. Totally. Walk myself to the bathroom. Okay. Let's go to number 2. Number 2 is detox. I say that with the caveat of not detox in terms of doing a detox, although somebody might choose to do that, but in terms of detoxification, right? The body releasing toxins. And again, that same mentor always says, you can't age well if you can't detox well. Well, I guess let's say this, because the ways the body will release toxins is urine, poop, sweat, our breathing. Those are the big ways that the body is going to release toxins. And so, you can think of it as like your skin, but that's sort of like sweat. Your intestines and our colon is, poop or elimination. The lungs and breath are breathing. The kidneys are the urine piece. And then the liver really helps facilitate all of that, as do our lymph nodes and blood vessel, right? I mean, everything in the body, everything's connected. I feel like I just named every part of the body, but the piece to also remember, okay, so we do have an episode of the body's daily detox where we went through all the detoxification pathways and the idea of doing a specific detox nutrition for a finite period of time that addresses actually the whole GI tract like we were talking about before. That is in the episode from January of 2020 called Debunking Detox. And so that can sort of dig deeper on these. And then I'm also thinking of the episode we did about caveman biology in a very modern world. And that's where I think we end up with this toxic burden or this toxic load on the system.
Yeah, some of it's about how much you've overloaded your system, like a lot of the things that in micro doses that might be considered even poison are actually, our bodies can take care of that. But then as soon as you get to an overload, like even I was thinking people who are sensitive to gluten, that, maybe if you had the smallest amount because it ended up being in the processing plant or something like that. I'm not talking about celiac. I'm just talking about food sensitivities that you might end up not having any symptoms with a really small amount, but then you go and have a bagel and all of a sudden your knees hurt and you're feeling a little foggy brain and a little phlegmy, so you have to say, what amounts am I taking in these toxins? And sometimes you can't prevent it. It could be in the air, so maybe an air purifier or something like that.
Yeah. And, there's like toxins in our furniture that are off-gassing. There's toxins, even walking around outside. You and I live in New York City, like the opposite of clean air, And to your point, it kind of depends on how much of it we're taking in as to, how our body's doing on releasing it, eliminating it. Christine, you were mentioning some of the things somebody might notice or experience if they need to. I think your skin breaking out, dark circles under your eyes, digestive issues can even connect, like you were saying. If you're a little sort of cranky and irritable, cravings certainly can connect to it, headaches, trouble sleeping. And I think this goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, limiting the things that we know exacerbate that toxic burden, like alcohol, smoking, some of these things, exercising regularly, drinking plenty of water can do wonders. Sleep does wonders. So just detox is huge, but more, I think, on the piece of this is recognizing like supporting your body's own detox function rather than sort of, going all out and then trying to do like a 1 week cleanse. I don't know that that's quite balance or consistency that's going to help us with, really getting from any of those minus numbers to those positive numbers.
Yeah.
Anything else on detox, Christine?
Just, you get a lot more bang for your buck if you work on the system, the body system that we're talking about. So, in terms of lymph, there is no heart to pump the lymph, which is a fluid that's kind of always washing your body. That would be exercise. That would be massage, So if you can get these systems working well, then you don't have, again, that toxic load building up because things are going out as fast as they're coming in. So just keep in mind, even, drinking lemon in your water, like gets rid of kind of loosens up phlegm and gets rid of ginger, these different things that you can try that are supporting the whole system, I think is more worthy than just taking a couple of days to have a juice fast or something. That's not supporting the system. That's getting rid of the toxins. But you also want to have a day in and day out stronger system to work with all these different assaults on our body.
Yeah. And on that note, too, you mentioned lemon water and ginger. There are also some herbs that can be particularly helpful when it comes to detoxification. So like milk thistle, dandelion root, licorice root, ginger you mentioned. There's a few of these. Turmeric is another one where, we can really help the body detoxify, give it a little extra oomph there. All right. Ready for domain 3?
Domain 3, yes.
Domain 3 is our endocrine system. So when it comes to our endocrine system, think of the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, right? It's like what we often think of as the HPA axis. But that's also in more recent years, at least more recent years that I've been studying all these things, they expand it to include the gonads. So it ends up, right? It's the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal, and then you add sort of the ovaries and the testes. Your pancreas is included. The pineal gland is included, like the parathyroid, right? All of these other pieces come together for the endocrine system. And when we think of the endocrine system, it's hormones, right? So the function is that it's really regulating the processes of the body by releasing the hormones, and the hormones travel through the blood to where they need to go, for different organ functions or tissues or things like that. We often then experience, right, when we're not necessarily functioning optimally in our endocrine system, we can see a whole host of challenges. That could be, stress related, right? It could be mood. It could be weight gain. It can be, showing up in our sex drive or our performance there or, a whole bunch of ways. My brain is now going to like blood sugar, right? Like blood sugar management is, I think, the primary lever to support the endocrine system. I guess detox too, right? The endocrine system, relies on, detoxification in that way too. Our endocrine system is also connected to, muscle control and bone health and, a million different things because everything in the body is connected,
And it's really a matter also of balance. In Chinese medicine, you don't want to tonify or build up a particular hormone because they all work in concert. It would be like a concert. It would be like having the trumpets in an orchestra drown out everybody else, So you really want it to be more like a symphony where some of the hormones, they call it, are antagonists, that they are inhibiting each other. And sometimes you want that. You don't always want to be hopped up on adrenaline, for sure. And so they'll tone down certain other hormones. And then if something's, like fatigue, adrenal fatigue, then you might have the thyroid step in and do some of the energy production kind of things to, at least get you out of bed in the morning, So the agonist and antagonist are the ways that the hormone, and maybe a hormone can be an antagonist with one, but an agonist to the other, that they work together and then they work against each other. It could be the same hormone depending on what they're in relationship with. So it's a complicated system. Not sure I would want to be an endocrinologist. They, do testing and things to be able to figure all this out. Imagine a veterinary endocrinologist, where they're trying to figure out for cats and dogs, whether they have high or low blood sugar is easy, but then all the rest of it, the thyroid and like you said, the sex hormones, there's so many different things that have to be thyroid, a little kitty thyroid, so it's just that it's a complicated system. And so, for us, what you can do about it is, try all these things that Jenn's recommending to stay as healthy as possible, because then the hormones will stay in balance and do a lot of the work behind the scenes that you don't even necessarily notice. They're just working well.
Yeah. And to your point, I think, especially, I think menopause and perimenopause, at least in my circles, has become such a big conversation lately. And that's another great example where I feel like in the rhetoric of it, it makes estrogen the enemy. And it's not. Estrogen is incredibly powerful and helpful. It's that it's not balanced with the progesterone. Right. So to your point of hyperfixating on one without recognizing that interplay, can really do a disservice. Mm-hmm. And so I think that brings us, seamlessly into domain 4, which is weight and body composition. Because a lot of people with endocrine disruption notice the difference in their weight. I think it's one of the signs where, or maybe it's just the sign that people get most frustrated with. And so then they act on it, right? Everything else we sort of rationalize away. When it comes to weight and body composition, I mean, we talk about it all the time in Salad with a Side of Fries, but certainly still goes back to that nutrition choices for blood sugar balance, sleep, stress management. You can go back to, we did an episode at the beginning of 2024 that's Nutrition 101. So that's a great one. Also, going back to the very beginning of Salad with a Side of Fries, BMI is BS, right? So when it comes to weight and body composition, BMI as a benchmark, body mass index, does not take into account body composition. It's only looking at, height and weight and sometimes age. So adding body composition to that, knowing what percentage of your body is lean muscle mass, knowing what percentage of your body is fat mass, is really more of what translates to health or our health outcomes or disease states, or disease processes, I should say. I feel like this is so loaded these days. So I'm like choosing my words carefully.
Yeah, I think there's also the aspect, we'll get to it later too, about fitness, and in terms of not only is it that you have lean muscles, that it can be also that it's a strong muscle, a flexible muscle, all the things that fitness involves is going to make a difference in terms of being able to maintain the body composition that you want, So if you are having trouble, getting up out of a chair, if you're having trouble getting up out of bed because you're so weak, even if you're the leanest person on earth, it's going to be hard not to be what they call skinny fat, where you have a layer of unwanted fat because you're not processing, your muscles are not using all that energy that you're taking in. So it's really good to work at the fitness piece of it at the same time that you're working at the weight and body composition that you're looking for.
Yeah. To your point, Christine, health is not a size. Right. Full stop. Mm-hmm. So we'll get to fitness in a second. Let's take a quick break to highlight our partner for this episode. Big thanks to Snap Cleaning Products for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. Make household and industrial cleaning a snap with their eco-friendly, economical, multi-purpose Snap products. Snap's concentrated, multi-purpose formulas perform light to industrial strength jobs all in one bottle. Snap products give you the cleaning power of a variety of cleaners, saving you time, money, and valuable storage space. And Snap products are developed with the environment in mind, using plant-based ingredients that are biodegradable, phosphate-free, non-toxic, and bottled in recyclable containers. So Thanksgiving is this week, which means lots of dishes. That's where my head went. So Snap is, I think, the easy button for dishes. So the Snap dishwashing liquid is like magic. Put a little bit, like fill the sink with water, put a little bit of the Snap dishwashing liquid, put the dishes in there, let them sit there for a couple minutes, and then they just wipe clean. The dishwashing liquid is only $11.95 for 32 ounces. And just like the Snap triple enzyme laundry detergent, the Snap dishwashing liquid actually breaks down organic stains to remove them, right? It breaks down those food particles because it's made of enzymes. So what that means too, when it comes to our dishes, is no smelly sponge, because there actually aren't things in that sponge getting moldy or gross. So there's also dishwashing crystals for your dishwasher. Those are $9 for 30 ounces and can do up to 120 loads of dishes in the dishwasher. That's wild. Maybe you're ready to upgrade all of your household cleaning products in one fell swoop. You can do that with the Snap Pack for just $89.95. And of course, all these prices are before your discount. Because you're a Salad with a Side of Fries listener, you get 10% off and free shipping. So text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846 to try Snap. In particular, the dishwashing liquid or the dishwasher crystals. Remember, you get 10% off plus free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, so let's do fitness next because you brought it up. So fitness will be number 5 of our domains. And so, Christine, as you were saying, fitness is really, it's the muscle tone, right? It's the strength that also helps with, supporting our joint health, right? It takes some of the stress off the joints. I think, muscle, as we say, is expensive tissue because you have to work for it. But I think, your muscle mass is your longevity lever. The less muscle we have, the faster we age.
Yeah.
I think fitness too, as we look at all of these domains, fitness is one where when we have more muscle mass, when we pick up heavy things and put them back down, when we strength train, whether that's with weights or our own body, we start to see that this can sort of be that tipping point for some of the other domains that we've talked about. This is really one that influences a lot of the others.
Mm-hmm. Like when you talk about sweat, we talked about detoxing, right. That's one of the things. And that's aerobic exercise. There are different kinds of fitness. So aerobic fitness is your stamina. We're having the New York City Marathon each year. And so, you can see these people out training and, they're getting rid of their toxins. So that's an aerobic, a lung thing. They say be careful because your pulse could be so low when you go to the doctor. The doctor may think that you have something wrong with you, and actually you're in aerobic shape. And then there's strength, and that's what Jenn was saying about, lifting heavy things and putting them down again. There's flexibility, and that would be like a yoga or Pilates. I think Pilates does strength as well. And then even balance, when you talk about longevity,
yes.
They're saying that balance is a real indicator of how long you're going to be on this earth, because if you can coordinate all those tiny little muscles and keep your balance, and also the connection between your brain and your body, that speaks to how long you're going to be around. So you can work on that. You can make it better. Tai Chi is a wonderful thing. And those are different kinds of fitness, each one of them.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because, right, a fitness plan is not complete unless we're addressing, the muscles, the heart muscle, our flexibility, and that balance. And it's interesting because muscle sends signals to the cardiovascular system, muscle sends signals to the brain, muscle sends all over. And, to your point on the balance and longevity, I mean, how many times do we know We actually talked about this in our bone health episode where, you know, balance is a key factor in falls, right? Especially for those who are aging. And falls are the main reason for broken bones as we age. And I'm going to butcher the statistic. I can't remember what it is, but it's something like, it's dramatic, whatever it is, the likelihood of death within a year of a hip fracture.
It's high, and I think the correlation with that, because I think it was a year and a half ago, I got a new hip. I mean, I was a ultra marathoner, and so after a while, things start to give out, which I'm happy to say, is just part of life, and you learn to kind of work around it and stuff. But my sister was here to take care of me, and she had taken care of our mother, who was in her 90s when she had her hip replaced. And she said the fact that I could do so many more things because my upper body and my other leg was strong that my mother wasn't able to do. So when my sister was taking care of my mother, she had to actually help her get up off the toilet, get her back into bed, get her out of bed physically, because my mother didn't have that kind of strength. And maybe I won't either when I'm 90. But that was one of the things I noticed about fitness, is that it pays off, that even if, you have a challenge in your life, to be able to depend on that, to be able to get up out of a chair yourself. It's a real benefit,
Absolutely.
to recovery.
Yeah, that strength improves healing. That statistic piece is about a fracture of the hip,
right,
rather than a replacement.
That's right.
Because I will say the hip replacement recovery is way faster than I think most people expect. But yes, 1,000%. And then that brings us, as we were talking about, the heart muscle. So this is our sixth domain, which is cardiovascular health. And I think when it comes to cardiovascular health, most of our doctors are really looking at cholesterol numbers and blood pressure numbers. And those are really all plumbing things. I think the piece that gets overlooked are the electrical pieces of the heart. So really consider, when we think about cardiovascular health, when we think about heart health, it's plumbing and electrical, it's your circulation, it's oxygenation throughout the body, right? Like all of these things are so important. I mean, I say it all the time, right? Like our heart is it's a muscle, but it's probably our most important muscle because if that one doesn't work well, we've got big problems.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think again, with the fitness piece, that, if they say, part of your heart is enlarged, if you're an athlete, you need to make sure they know that, like, that's not necessarily a sign of something's wrong. That's just a function of being an athlete. So, but then if you have the heart muscle is enlarged because it's having such a hard time pumping the blood around, and it's only getting enlarged because the system is failing, that's something you're going to be in that, minus 10 to 0 realm. And you start to notice it, getting out of breath when you try to do, just silly things like getting dressed in the morning, or, walking down the hall to get your coffee. If you're out of breath for those things, you might want to think about, would I want to be guided through a cardiovascular fitness routine? Maybe at the local hospital, they have heart health trainers who have been trained in this, and you can get way, way better at this. So it's just something, again, we need to know our own bodies, and you need to know if this is normal and I should get used to it, or is this unusual and maybe there's something I can do about it.
Absolutely. So on that note, we did an episode in February of this year, February 2024, called More Than Cardio with Jenny Martin. And that was about cardiopulmonary exercise testing. And in that one, we talked about the testing that you can do and the connection between the heart, the lungs, and the muscle, and how those elements all working together are so critical. And one of the things that I learned from doing the CPET, that test, is that I have an ischemic threshold, meaning if my heart rate gets above a certain point for longer than, 90 seconds or so, it actually does damage to my heart. So there's a lot of pieces to saying, to your point, Christine, of really knowing our bodies and what works for us and how to train to improve our own cardiovascular health. So because of the CPET, they give you like a little bit of an exercise prescription. So I've now spent, 8 months, maybe 7-8 months working on that. So now I want to go back and do the testing again and see how I've improved, because that's also a piece of this is it's all about improvement from wherever you are and continuing on that. So even if you're at a +2 or a +5 or a +8, there are things that we can learn to tweak and grow and keep progressing. Other heart health episodes, it takes heart. Heart health is sexual health, and matters of the heart and metabolism, featuring Dr. Philip Ovadia. Okay, so 5 was fitness, 6 was cardiovascular health. We're on to 7, which is cognitive function. Fitness feeds into this too, right? Because our brain health, our productivity, oxygen to the brain, balanced blood sugar supports our cognitive health, right? I think we talked about this in a couple episodes earlier this year too. We did one with Megan Lyons, brain health and blood sugar. But Alzheimer's is also, I guess unofficially referred to as diabetes type 3. Because it's calcification or really oxidation in the brain, right? It's this sugar in the brain creating some of the problems. So circulation is critical for cognitive function. Our gut health is critical. The piece that I think is sort of heartening is that it's the low glycemic impact nutrition, right? The building blocks of nutrition that are supporting the weight, the sleep, the gut health, the fitness, right? All the other things are also supporting our cognitive health, right? So we see how all of these domains are connected.
Yeah, I'm not sure when not getting enough sleep became trendy. Like it probably was alongside of all of us being so busy, and that it's very acceptable to tell people that, oh, I haven't had a minute to breathe, that I'm running around all the time, and that some of that in terms of brain health, you need to quiet, you need to absorb, you need to, it doesn't have to be meditation. It could be like some guided visualization where they talk about going off to a little bubbling brook with little bunny rabbits and pretty flowers in the field, and just to kind of take a break, that I think the busyness and also like, I can't afford to sleep. I have so much to do. So, you're maybe sleeping 4 to 5 hours, 6 hours, and that's going to affect your cognitive. So, is it worth it? Like if you're at work and you're making a whole bunch of mistakes, or if you forgot to meet somebody at a restaurant, is it worth it to miss your sleep and to also, be so busy that you never take a break? Like you have to ask yourself these questions.
Yeah. And frankly, we're sort of bringing these together. Domain 8 is sleep, right? So it's interesting. So as you were saying that, I was thinking of, in college, when you pull the all-nighter, or little kids that have so much resistance, to going to sleep. It's like that FOMO. But it's so interesting because if we don't sleep well, it's disrupting our detoxification pathways. It disrupts our recovery, our hormones, our cognitive function. I mean, everything. So go back to the episode Sleep on It for more of like what happens when we sleep. But also, I did an episode called The Ultimate Biohack, which is sleep is the ultimate biohack. Like if you did few other things, but you focused on sleep, you would notice so much health improvement in every single one of these domains. It's really critical for everything. And then as we're sort of merging these together, I go back to the college all-nighter to cram for an exam where really we would actually have better function of our brain if we slept, like, the irony of it all.
Yeah. I remember taking a Spanish exam, and because I had stayed up all night to study, the only words when they wanted us to translate, the only words I could think of were all the other languages, but not Spanish. So I was remembering Hebrew, I was remembering French, I was all the little tidbits that I had learned over a lifetime, but not the Spanish just wasn't there anymore because I hadn't slept.
I mean, it's real. And I would say too, like the cognitive function piece, like you might notice challenges with focus. You might notice challenges with like recall, right? If we can't put our finger on the word that we want, energy challenges, can't find your keys, right? You're looking for your glasses and they're on your head, you know, all of those things. And for more on cognitive function, the episode we did Beyond Caffeine, Natural Ways to Improve Energy, really focused a lot on that cognitive function. So we talked about domain 8 of sleep with domain 7 of cognitive function. So this kind of brings us to like one thing it's not a domain of health, but it's a thing that impacts every single one of these, and that is stress. Stress disrupts all of these, and disruption in any of these is experienced as stress in the body. So it's a little like chicken and egg, right? Where I think in the context of thinking of these 8 domains of health, stress management plays a factor in every single one. With that said,
back to the bunny rabbits.
If you slept, right, back to the bunny rabbits. And if you slept, right? So if we were to prioritize these, right? So if you said, okay, there's a bunch of these where I am not at a plus 10. That's okay. We're human, right? We are all a work in progress. And by the way, today you might feel like a plus 10 in something, and another day, another week, or another month, another year, you might feel like that domain is no longer at a plus 10. That's fine, right? This is all very fluid. It changes. So it's not stagnant, but I would say if we were to prioritize where to start, number 1 is start with the gut. Because as we talked about, right, it connects to everything else. Number 2 is going to be sleep. And number 3, this might surprise people, is going to be fitness. If we focus on those 3 in that order, digestion, the gut as that domain, sleep, and fitness, you will notice that the other 5 domains will see some improvement. And then what you prioritize from there is really up to you and what you're noticing and what you're feeling and what you're experiencing. And then you can sort of, build on those. But I would start with those 3 in that order. The last piece that I think is a really important reminder is that this takes time. It actually takes 45 days for your thyroid to reset, 3 cycles for a woman for her body to reset. We have to be willing to give it the time for the body to respond. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to repair it overnight. We've heard that a million times. But if we recognize that consistency is key, right? Consistency is king, as I always say. And that if it's 45 days for the thyroid, 3 months of a woman's cycle, right? 3 cycles. If we consider this in terms of 90 days, right? A quarter of the year. Let's start to look at this in 90-day increments. And then the other piece is, I implore you, be willing to journal. And by journaling, I don't mean like writing down every thought and feeling. I mean, track what you notice. Because a lot of times these things are going to improve in such a way where unless we pause to think about it and consider it, we might not notice some of the changes that are happening, some of the evolution we are experiencing, even within those 45 days, even within those 3 months.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think the way I think of it is in 2 different things. I think of my identity of who I am as opposed to where am I going. And so I think of myself as the kind of person who takes care of themselves in these small ways, that I'm not moving mountains. I'm maybe, changing what I eat for breakfast in the morning, or I'm changing what time I eat dinner at night. One thing, 1 or 2 things, but my identity is the kind of person who would do that, would make a small change. And then, maybe that worked out well. Let me make another small change. So it's an identity. And then secondly, that you're on a path, like Jenn was saying, it doesn't happen overnight. So this is actually a philosophy. I think, if you think of Taoism in China, you're on a path. And then this path is just where you're going. It's not necessarily a destination. It's like observing as you go. How do I feel? How do I feel? And keep looking for those small changes. You're making small changes and then you're becoming aware of small changes. So that's gotten me through in terms of being able to kind of take on this project of me, and I think for a lot of other people too, that it's really helpful to not always be looking for, I need to lose 10 pounds. Because when you get to the 10 pounds, I need to lose another 4 pounds, and it just goes on and on. Rather than I'm the type of person who's aware of what I'm eating. I'm thinking about when I go shopping, how is this going to feel if I eat this versus that, and you're always just kind of processing the choices that you have. And so that to me is it's just, in a way, it's a lot easier to me.
Absolutely. That goes back to our bullseye of change, right? That identity piece that's really at the heart of part of our growth, and evolving into that. And by the way, those of you who want more objective ways to measure this stuff, you could certainly do blood work. You can certainly speak to your physician. And you can do testing. We've talked about genetic testing. We've also talked about epigenetics, which are really a function of lifestyle. So next week's episode, we're talking to the clinical director of a company that does epigenetic testing. So it's really looking at lifestyle, and they sort of give you like an aging score, right? So anybody who watches the Kardashians, they did this test on the last season of the Kardashians where it's like, what's your biological age? And so you may have some elements where you're aging faster than others, and then that might give you, some direction as to which domain you want to focus on. So stay tuned to next week for that. Christine, for today, a final thought, something to wrap this up?
So the idea of putting all these things together to me is more about being able to think of the small changes that we can make and really kind of approach it with curiosity in terms of like what Jenn was saying about keeping a journal and how does this all affect me? And when I, drink this liquid versus that liquid, when I eat at this time of the day or that time of the day, it's just a curiosity. And I guess keep the judgy stuff out of it because it's so charged. So much of this is so charged. So we're going to elevate it up to another way of looking at it.
I love that. I think the piece that's coming to me in this moment to wrap this up is like, there's so much information out there. It can be so confusing as to where to put our efforts. And we can feel like, we might be focusing on something and then we hear something else from somebody and we think, oh my God, is what I'm doing a giant mistake and I'm supposed to be doing that? So I want you to say there is no mistake. Whatever you are focusing on is 100% wonderful. And my hope is that this helps give you focus if you're feeling like you need to do everything, and that this helps you stay the course on the path that you're on to see the benefits for yourself and let go of the shiny object syndrome that can happen when we pay attention to everything that's, in headlines or on the internet. All right, we did a thing. So I suppose it's time. Let's preview our nutrition nugget. So this week's bonus episode nutrition nugget is called Give. So in the spirit of Thanksgiving, yes, but it also translates into health in a few ways. So we're going to talk about this on Friday for this week's Nutrition Nugget bonus episode. Be sure, click the follow or the plus sign on whatever app where you're listening, and then your app will alert you when the Nutrition Nugget is available on Friday morning. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your health coach, Jenn Trepic. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I am at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideofries.com. Pick your platform, send a message. I truly love hearing from you. Send your takeaways, your ideas, your questions. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me as your health coach. Christine, thank you again for being here. And of course, everybody, if you are not already, join our membership program by going to glow.fm/saladwithasideofries. This shows your support for this podcast, this community, and your health. You'll get this week's recipe for the kale and sweet potato hash that you can make with your Thanksgiving leftovers. So until next week, remember, as you're hearing from others and from the internet about what to do to support your health, come back to what you know. Come back to these 8 domains of health and simply keep moving forward. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it and you are worth it. Happy healthy.